why should business care? And then secondly, can we kind of unpack a little bit which businesses should care more or less and why, in terms of which businesses, which sectors have the greatest impacts on biodiversity. And I put the plus or minus there because those impacts are not always negative. Business can have positive impacts on biodiversity and ecosystems, as well as negative impacts. And of course, business, many of them also depend on biodiversity and ecosystem services, and I'll go into that in a bit more detail. Broadly speaking, I think we can talk about reasons internal to a business and external pressures of various kinds. Now, internal business drivers, I've included consumer preference because businesses are very focused on meeting the demands of their customers. But also we need to think about the awareness or the concern of the managers of a business themselves, because they're part of this story and they're reading the press and other media just as the rest of us are. So they know increasingly what's going on. They're concerned about it. They're also very focused on what their customers want, which may or may not have something to do with the environment. And they're also concerned with what their investors want, particularly publicly listed companies whose shares are sold in the market. They need to pay close attention to what shareholders are saying. In terms of external pressures, there's general public concern about the environment, increasingly stringent product standards, as well as regulatory requirements. So I'm distinguishing here between voluntary standards and legal requirements. And more governments are looking to business for answers to the biodiversity crisis. Looking a little bit more closely at what's going on within business management. And as part of the TEEB study, about a year and 2 months ago, we had the great good fortune to have McKinsey come to us and say, could we do a survey as a contribution to TEEB and use their contacts in the business world, about 1,500 senior executives from around the world, to try and understand what are business attitudes towards, what are managers' attitudes towards biodiversity and ecosystems. And we had to spend a lot of time trying to translate the language of biodiversity and ecosystems into something that would be meaningful to these executives. Hopefully we did that, so the part of the survey was defining our terms. And this is just one example from the results suggesting that the leading reason that these executives identified biodiversity as a possible concern to their business was reputation. They want to ensure that they are seen as good corporate citizens, that they are not seen as the bad guys. Now the question is, how important is that really, and what are they doing about it? That's another question, but certainly reputation was top of the list of the reasons that the executives identified for why they should care. But the next two down are also interesting. One is the alignment with the company's business goals, mission, or values. And there again, I think we tend to forget sometimes that people in business are us, often. They're the same, they're part of society. They want their companies to be doing the right thing. They want their business to be contributing to their personal goals. They want some alignment or consistency between what their business is doing and what they believe in. And I think we shouldn't discount that as a real driver of change. And thirdly, not surprisingly, responding to regulatory requirements. Many businesses see increasingly stringent rules and regulations, new laws coming on the books related to biodiversity and ecosystems in many different countries, and of course they have to respond to that.